I want to say thank you to all you guys for all you do to make this race great, because if we didn't have the media, you guys wouldn't get the word out to everybody to make it happen, and I really appreciate that you guys play nice with each other. That doesn't always happen, and so thank you very much for all you did to make 2010 such a great success. Before I make the formal announcements concerning the 2011 race, I'd like to acknowledge Megan Frazier's here. Megan is the marketing coordinator for the FX Map Brewery, and Megan's going to be joining the Boilermaker committee as the media coordinator. So I want to thank Megan for volunteering for this important position. You'll obviously be hearing a lot more from her as the race gets a little bit closer. So let us begin. As all you are aware, we did not open registration for the 2011 race the day after the running of this year's race has been our tradition. It was a feeling of staff and directors that we were being forced to make decisions without the opportunity to look at lessons learned at the race in front of us. As a point of reference, at this time, we probably would have been looking at about 1,000 runners who already would have signed up for the 2011 race if we had opened registration as we normally did. Today, we're here to announce the plans concerning registration for the 2011 Boilermaker. For the 2011 Boilermaker, we will be instituting a registration cap for both the 15 and the 5K races. For the 5K race, the cap will be set at 13,000 runners, and for the 5K at 4,000 runners. Last year, we had 13,108 for the 15K and 2,991 for the 5K. So, I guess the first question is, why the cap? It is our belief, among many in the industry, that the U.S. is in the midst of the second great running boom. And I think a story is pretty indicative of this, and I'm going to tell you the story of what's happened to the Boston Marathon. The Boston Marathon traditionally has about 26,000 runners. And for this year's race, for the 2010 race, it took them 9 weeks and 3 days to be able to fill that field of 26,000. Now, Boston's a rather unique race. Boston is a race where traditionally you have to have a qualifying time to even be able to get in. So it's a little bit more exclusive, if you will, than other races. They opened up race registration for the 2011 race, and their registration was done in 8 hours. Now, needless to say, there were a lot of very unhappy runners that found out that suddenly that they'd been pushed out. So we're seeing this overall, that we're seeing throughout the country, that races are increasing. And interestingly, I just saw the numbers from the 2009 numbers. The Boilermaker for the first time has broken into the top 50 races overall for everywhere. So we've also seen that growth. But let's kind of bring it a little closer to home. While the vast majority of what I hear from runners is the incredible experience that they have with the Boilermaker, the problems that I do hear about, the concerns that I hear about, is the rather confining start and the ability to be able to break through the pack. Now, we've also been relatively fortunate over the past couple of years to have some pretty good weather. And our concerns have always been, we've got to make sure that we have the best product that we can have. Facing all this, I feel that if registration was left unchecked, we could be easily looking at over 14,000 runners signing up for next year's race. So, at some point in time, bigger is not necessarily always better. And, my concern with this race has always been, I want people leaving this race to say, I just ran one of the best races in the country, and not necessarily worrying that they ran the biggest race in the country. So, at some point in time, the quality of the race is going to have an opportunity to be able to diminish, and we do not want that to happen. On the other hand, the 5K. We're looking at the 5K where we're taking on significantly more runners than we had the previous year. Now, the 5K has grown about 20% year over year. Why can we do it with the 5K? Well, the start just doesn't have the constraint. Wide open there at that particular point. We can take on those sorts of runners. So the long and the short of it is, if we look at the 15K and the 5K, we're going to welcome 900 more runners than we did the previous year, if both caps are hit. So I guess that's kind of the good news in regards to it. Now, I want to talk about when registration is going to take place. Registration will be opening online only beginning midnight, January 8th, Boilermaker at Boilermaker.com, which, interestingly enough, is the halfway point to the Boilermaker. Hard to believe that at some point in time it is going to be July and it's going to be warm and those sorts of things. So what we're going to be doing is opening up registration online only for the first month before paper applications. Now, why are we doing that? Well, a couple of reasons. One is we're trying to be as green as possible. Paper is basically, it's difficult to us to have to be able to handle. We'd rather people do it online. So, and we're seeing more and more races that are basically, some are just going online only. We understand a lot of people don't like to work with computers and those sorts of things. But for the first month, it's going to be online only registrations. On February 5th, paper applications will come out. We're going to have probably 3 or 4 sites where we will have the initial sign-ups on that. That's a Saturday. And one of the differences that's going to also take place is we will not be allowed to be able to use credit cards for paper applications. PCI pronouncements that have taken place in regards to basically dealing with credit card security have gotten us to the point where we really can't be taking credit card information. So if you're going to be using a paper application, you're going to be basically either using credit card or you're going to be using checks or cash. No credit cards. So if you're going to want to use a credit card, it's going to be online only. In addition, if you're going to be using paper, we're going to have a $2 paper processing fee. You know, this paper does not come without a cost, and so what we're going to be doing is basically, hopefully, gently moving people to an online application. The only one that does not have a cap for us is going to be a 3-mile walk. We're still wide open with that. I'd love to see that grow significantly if we could. And any of the paper application costs that we have in regards to the 3-mile walk will be going to the charity of choice. This year's charity will be the Neighborhood Center. So we're going to be supporting them with that. In kind of other news, one of the things is we're going to be changing is the 5K is no longer going to be called a run. It's going to be called a race. And the difference with that is going to be is we will be acknowledging the top 3 male and female finishers. We want to tell people this is not a 5K walk. Okay, this is a 5K run. If you want to walk, we have a walk that takes place on that Saturday. We've ended up with a situation though we're ending up with a lot of some walkers in this, and really it's very difficult for us, especially dealing with the wheelchair athletes. They're flying through there, and we want to keep as little intermixing between our 5K people and the 15K people as we can. So, secondly, the 5K will be moving its start time. We had been starting it at 7:30. It will be starting at 7:15 that Sunday. So once again, what we're trying to do is to just keep the mixing that's taking place between the 15K and the 5K participants. So that one is not real tough for us, I believe, because the vast majority of our 5K participants tend to be local. It's not as big a problem if I had to tell somebody who was a 15K participant who was coming from Albany and those sorts of areas, that 15 minutes I know can take a little bit more time. But 5K, I think everybody can kind of handle. So those are kind of our major changes that are taking place. I'll open it up for questions if anyone has any.